Welcome to Spotlight on Everyday Heroes. Today's guest is LYN ASSELTA, an artist and a writer. LYN shares her journey from early artistic experiments to a workshop that reignited her passion for painting. She discusses overcoming self-doubt, the influence of a mentor on representing women in art, and her transition to writing. Her Saturdays at the Cove newsletter became a significant connection during the COVID-19 lockdowns. Join us here on my podcast to learn more about her future projects, including the book that she's writing.
I met you a little less than a year ago at Kelly Maluka's workshop, and I was introduced to you as the person who does amazing artwork and especially rock. I also learned that you are you have your weekly memoirs or mailings that you send out, very inspirational, very, very thought-provoking. And I wanted to bring you on this show and learn more about your journey to where you are now as a famous artist, LYN ASSELTA, and also a writer. So maybe we can go down that memory lane. You can tell us a little more how you got started and why you do what you do, and then we'll start from there.
Okay. How far back do you want to go?
Whatever you think is relevant. Any interesting part that you want to share?
Yeah. First, you said I have to kind of like cringe because you said famous. I see people out there that I'm just plugging along. So I'm hoping for the best.
You're very humble. I'll give you that much.
I started painting again later on in life. I think it was around 2004 when I started sort of getting serious about painting again. And I took kind of my first pivotal moment was taking a workshop. I was doing pastels, but I was which I do all the time. But I was taking a workshop from someone who was teaching in oils. And he's very tough with his students. He makes them work very, very hard. And but very generous with his knowledge. And so he told everybody that they could have one big question to ask at the end of the workshop. And we were doing plein air painting. So we were scattered all over this beach and it was freezing cold. And he came up to me and he said, "So what's your question?" And I remember I said, "So why is art such a big boys club?" Because I felt that women were not as well represented, and I was concerned about that. And I was just starting out, so I was kind of, I didn't know one thing from another. But he looked at me and he said, "You're not going to like how I answer this." And I said, "Well, I asked, so answer." And he said to me, "I have a question for you." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, when did you start painting again?" And when he said that, I thought, and there you have it. He said, I hate to say it, but he said, most women take a break in between. And he said, for all good reasons, mostly. But he said, I see an awful lot of women coming back into the art fold later in life. And he said, so you either are content with being just somebody who's painting because you want to paint, or if you really want to get serious, you've got 20 years to catch up with everybody else who's been doing it, including the women, for all that time. And it was the end of a 3-day workshop when we were talking about this. And I had a 5-hour drive back home from the workshop. And in the car on that 5 hours, I sort of laid out the rest of my everything. It was like such this huge eye-opening moment that I had all this that I had to catch up with. So that was kind of how it all started. And I thought, I'm not content to just be painting for myself. I have things I've wanted to say with my work, and so that's what I want to do. And so I just started kind of pushing myself further and further and further and harder and harder. And one thing led to another, and it evolved. And I didn't have painters near me where I lived, so I started a group of them, and that pushed me to not only teach but to work more. And so a lot of encouragement, a lot of things that sort of funneled me into this direction. And the writing came about.
But before we actually get to the writing, I really want to hone in on your journey as an artist. What stood out to me from what you just mentioned is that the pivotal moment was when the gentleman kind of awakened you to the possibilities, that there is a greater need to bring more female artists into this scene, right, if you will.
Yeah. And I think what it was really trying to get to, the point that it was trying to make, was that, like it or not, a lot of females, start out at art school, and you do your thing, and then you make choices with your life. You either have to support yourself, support somebody else, you start a family, you do whatever it is that you do, just like anybody. I think I notice, especially when I teach workshops, that the bulk of the students are female in my workshops. Maybe it's the medium, maybe not, but I think that there's this need all throughout your life to express something, and there's maybe need versus responsibility, and maybe there's more. I can't speak to what men go through if they become artists, but I do notice that there seem to be a lot of them who continue that path, where a lot of women do veer off and come back. So for me, it was kind of a challenge. It was something to really wrap my head around and say, yeah, I don't ever hear anybody say they regret what they did at all. But I do see a lot of women that come back into that creative space later in life.
And what was your career before you went back into teaching was?
I worked as an elementary school art teacher.
Okay.
I worked with hearing kids. I worked with deaf children for a while. And then after my daughter was born, I stayed home and raised my daughter. I had one child, and so I wanted to be there. And so I stayed home and I did freelance work. I did everything from calligraphy to making big pots out of basketry and gourds and things. And I did a little bit of graphic design for people. Whatever came up, I would do it. A little bit of sign painting here and there. So I just kind of kept my fingers in things all along. There was a time when my daughter was getting ready to apply to colleges, and I said, oh my gosh, I said, think about it. You're at a point in your life where you have the world wide open to you. You can do anything you want to do. I said, there's nothing that holds, you don't have
boundaries. Yeah,
exactly. And she looked right at me, looked me right in the eye, and she said, you know what? You are too, Mom. And I thought, oh my God, you're right.
Wow. Right back at you. How should I know that at you?
That was a pretty powerful moment. So, and at that point I had been painting a little bit, but I think it was something I had always felt this need to do. I had done something with art from the time I was little. I never thought to do anything different. So the teaching came out of it. It was still art that I was teaching. I was teaching kids.
What was the moment like when you actually decided to, okay, you know what? I want to take that workshop with that gentleman. What was that moment like for you? At which point did you realize that you go back to it?
That I wanted to go back to it. To be honest with you, I'd been doing calligraphy for a long time, and I'd been doing some drafting, like residential drafting, drawing, like reworking people's blueprints for their houses. Mm-hmm. I was working over a drafting table all day long, and I was getting to the point where, with all that tight work all the time, my neck was killing me. I was physically not doing well, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. It's too much now. So I don't really know. I was kind of feeling sort of sorry for myself that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with myself. And so I was cleaning out the closet. I've told my friends this story before too. I was cleaning out the closet in my studio, and I came across a little box of Grumbacher pastels that I had had from college, from a 2D design class that I had. And I don't know how many were in it, 24 maybe. But I thought, I just like these things. This is kind of fun. So I went online, and I knew nothing about the new papers or anything like that. So I ordered some sanded paper, and I ordered a small set of Unison pastels. And the minute I put a pastel to that sanded paper, I thought, this is it. I have to do this. It was immediate, and it was weird. It was kind of this thing that I thought, okay, what do I do? And I look back now and I look at those paintings that I did initially, and they were so, when I say horrendous, they were so horrendous. But for whatever reason, I thought, if I put these in a frame, and I actually kind of ended up having a show, and I look at those paintings and I think, I had a lot of nerve to get out there and put those things there. They were really,
that was the transitional moment. That was the pivotal moment. It doesn't matter, like, we can judge it as much as we want, but that was what you need at that moment to actually be like, you know what? that was the awakening moment for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's too bad that artists don't show some of those in between work, maybe the beginning work, right? We all want to show all our best foot forward, whatever, the final product, the best work. And those are, I think if you do an exhibition, actually put those initial first paintings out and be like, this is where it all started. So you can actually see the journey.
That'd be fun. That would actually be fun to do, to like put something into a show now that was
because that is the story, right? This is the story of your beginning, of your formation as an artist.
Yeah,
a teacher.
It's funny. I think social media has pushed that sense also of you only post your best stuff, and people don't ever see, unless you make that decision to put it out there, and people don't ever see the in-between days, the days when you're just slogging through your studio and you're hoping that something happens in there,
Right. But you know what? We are not perfect. And by showing those vulnerabilities, and I know some of my guests actually talked a lot about how we are really big introverts, but we're putting our stories out there, which are not very pretty, but that's what's making us us. So,
well, I think too, it kind of gives you the sense that you're not by yourself out there doing this. There's other people that are doing the same thing, and they're at the same spot, and regardless. And
it's a great thought.
You need that. Yeah, you need that community of people at the same, doing the same thing as you, or knowing that you've done it. I think that's important. I think when I took that class with the oil painter, I think that was one of the things that really surprised me, was the fact that there were other people. I was kind of isolated in my own studio doing my work. I didn't really have a lot of other people that I knew yet in that field. And to go there and to see other people struggling just as much as you were it was kind of, I don't want to say inspiring, but it was encouraging is the word I guess I need. Mm-hmm. You knew that somebody else was in the same spot.
Yeah. And tell me more about, as your career as a teacher developed and progressed, how did surrounding yourself with like-minded people affect your growth personally and professionally?
As a teacher, as in like a workshop teacher?
As an artist?
Yeah. One of the things that was extremely helpful for me was when I started the group of pastel painters in Florida, where we were bringing in other artists to teach workshops, and the group was doing activities every month, and I was helping to coordinate all those things. And by having that group of people around me for several years, I worked with that group for 5 years. I was there. It pushed me to not only get better at what I did, but to understand all of the aspects of what was necessary to be creating art and putting art out there in the world. Because I was telling them, I'll find out for you. I'll figure that out. I'll take care of that. We'll do that together. And they were fantastic. They were enthusiastic. They wanted to learn. I've watched them all do amazing things now. And it was truly a community that pushed each other. And that made a huge difference, at least for me. It not only gave me the confidence to be able to say, if I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out. But it also allowed all of us, I think, to encourage each other. And that, to me, in the art community is gold. You have to be able to encourage each other. You can so easily get stuck in your studio and stay there by yourself without anybody around. And it's too easy for that to happen. And you get like this, So when there are those others around you, it means the world, really.
Yeah. And as you said, you can always not only motivate each other, but also learn from each other, because everyone comes from a different background. You bring some skills to the table, other people do too. And then you watch each other's technique and be like, oh, I didn't know you can use it this way. Da, 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 da. All those wonderful relationships get born too. Are you staying in touch with those folks up till now, since you're not in Florida anymore?
Yeah. I still stay in touch with quite a few of them. And actually went back to Florida last November, and I taught a one-day workshop for them and did a demo and got to see everybody. So it's nice. It's been a nice
win-win. It's a win-win.
It really is. Yeah.
Awesome. So how did the Saturdays at the Cove get born? As part of your artistic journey, or was that something else?
That was a total surprise. Just like a lot of things, COVID. It was COVID. I had a full year. I had moved to Maine 8 months before everybody got locked down for COVID. And when I moved here, I started to try to make contacts here up in Maine. And I was just making some headway, but I had also booked up, I don't know, I think I had like 9 or 10 workshops booked for the remainder of the year, including one I was supposed to be going to Florence to teach for the first time, which I was all excited about. And then everything shut down. And one by one, within a matter of a week, every single workshop canceled. And that trip to Florence, which was supposed to be a week later, canceled. And I sat here in my kitchen it was a Saturday morning. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm here. I am in a place that I know 4 people. I had moved here. I didn't know anybody. And I thought, I wonder how long this is going to last. I wonder what I'm going to do. And with all those workshops canceling, I wanted to keep in touch with all those students. That was a lot of, when you consider, anywhere between 10 and 18 students per workshop, that's a lot of people that now have different plans. So I thought, okay, what do I do? And I had the web host that I use for my website there. They also have a newsletter component, and I'd used it a handful of times to send out notice. So I thought, well, I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can put something out there and say hello to people and just sort of say, how are you doing? And, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And
check in, a friendly check in.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt like. I was like, I can't go down and have coffee. I can't call somebody and say, let's go have coffee. So
yeah,
I'm going to make my coffee and I'm going to sit here with you. So I had always written in some form or other from the time I was maybe 10. I had done it my whole life, but always only for myself. I never put it out there. I never stuck in my journals and my sketchbooks and things. And I just never did anything more with it. So I did this on a Saturday morning. And then the following Saturday, I did it again. I didn't really know if anybody was reading it or not, but it gave me sort of a focus. I would go for a walk by myself, down wherever, and I'd come back and I'd write something. I don't remember exactly how many months it was into it, but COVID was still everywhere and people were still locked in their house. And I got an email from someone who said, I've been emailing you every week and I don't know if you're getting my emails, but I just found this other email address. So I'm trying here. And I wanted to tell you that I read your Saturday newsletter every Saturday. And she went on to say, I know people who live near you and it would, if you need somebody or you need anything, here's some people. And,
oh, wow.
And I thought, so I wrote her back and I said, well, what email address are you writing to? And she told me, and she said, it's the one on your newsletter. I said, there's an email address on my newsletter? I had no idea. So I contacted the newsletter people and I said, is there an email? I don't know what I'm looking at here. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, how do I get to it? And they told me, and I opened this thing up and there were over 600 emails in there from people. And I think, oh my,
all those friends they didn't know you had.
I didn't know who these people were. I was shocked. I had no idea. And so I sat down and I started reading these emails. And I have to tell you, I was in tears for some of them. It was amazing. People were sending me notes with things like they would take photos of the paintings that they were working on, or they would send me notes about places they had been up here that if you can get in your car and go drive to here, you're going to love this place. Or they would tell me that they were reading every Saturday and gave them something to focus on. Or I don't know. It was just one thing after another. People would send me pictures of their grandkids. It was just astounding. So I kept going. And I thought maybe we'd be doing this for, at the most a couple of months. And I'm still writing it. And it's 4 years later now. So
Wow. And you said you have how many people that are subscribed to this at this point?
I think there's a couple thousand at this point.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's a newsletter it's not Substack. It's not something that's going out all over the place, but it gets passed around by word of mouth. So it's been...
That's how I got subscribed to it too. And one of my favorite ones was, and I still remember it actually, and I try to go back to it every time I lose connection to it, and talked a lot about how we are living from one event to another event. Whether it's a birthday, it's an anniversary, it's a holiday, we're trying to get there as soon as we can. But that journey from where you are now up till then, so kind of gets erased in the the mix, because our mind is already over there where it didn't happen yet, and it's not over here where we're right now, but it should be kind of living that journey, because there's a lot of moments that in between, on the in between days, like you said.
Yeah. It's true though. I mean, I feel like one of the things that surprises me about the newsletter and about the things that get written is the sense that there are so many commonalities with all of us, that there are so many things that we do or even don't do in our lives that are common. The emotions and the way that we approach things, and the even the outcomes of things. It feels to me like they should be things that everybody just actually considers, but it's like so much a part of your everyday life that it just blows by most of the time. That word notice is something that I think about every time I write. What did I notice this week? What did I see? What did I notice? Like yesterday, I was driving and there was a truck in front of me. And this truck had on the back of it, it was a truck, like a construction truck, for like a panel truck, with the big panels. And it was for a lumber company. And on the back of it, this truck said, what if, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it said in big letters across the back of it, what if every human felt valued and heard and understood? And I thought, I'm behind that truck. This is the thing that I'm noticing today, And we're just humans that are all doing the same thing. So I think what I enjoy most about it is just being able to articulate that idea that there's something that is common, that is
Yeah, I like how you said it very, very elegantly, that we are more alike than we're different. And when you were sharing your stories, the 600 people or that 1,000 people that are on your mailing list, they recognize themselves because, maybe you had a different situation, but the outcome, the things that you notice from it could be applied to anyone.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So you kind of like awakening us to the basic truths that could be just lost in the transition because we're so busy. We are pursuing that next event, whatever it is. Now, during your journey, were there moments of self-doubt? It's a loaded question.
Yes.
And how did you deal with that?
Maybe yes, with a capital Y.
What's that?
I'm graving yes with a capital Y. Of course there were. Yeah. Oh, wow. How did I deal with that?
I know you when you talk about your story, it just sounds like, very elegant, very smooth journey along the way to where you are now, which sounds like it's a happy place for you. You're optimizing your passion. You are doing what you love. You're benefiting so many people. But as we know, behind the scenes, there is some feeling that we don't always talk about, which I've been through that a lot. Every time I start something new, I have that self-doubt. Like, what if people not going to like my podcast? What are they going to think about this talking head Katrina? What does she think about herself? Who does she think she is? Things like that, right? All those talking voices in our heads and thinking that all the people around you thinking about those things.
Yeah.
But is that true? Maybe not. But I wanted to kind of hear from you as to what was your journey like with those self-doubts and those self-criticism or limiting beliefs, whatever it was that you had to deal with.
The thing that immediately comes to my mind is the sense of it, because I moved so far away and changed so much of my life, that sense that my biggest doubt was, or my biggest drawback for the whole thing was the idea that I was letting down the people that I had been around for so many years, family and friends and everybody else. And how would they understand that? And would it even make sense to them what I was doing? And I still have doubts about that. It's a tough one. It's very difficult. I don't believe that you get, and I'll say this probably, hopefully in the simplest way that I can, but I truly don't believe that you get to do what you're meant to do without some sort of difficulty along the way. I think that if you are the kind of person that has this feeling inside that there is something that you are meant to do and you have no idea what it's supposed to be, but you know that there's a trajectory and you have have to follow it and you have something there. It's a hard thing to explain because it's not, you can't quantify it. You can't say, I have to do A, B, C, D, E, and then I'm going to get F. It doesn't work that way. So the logic isn't always there. And when you don't have that logic to fall back on, I think that's the hardest thing. That's the thing that always gives me that self-doubt. How do I explain what I'm doing? And the only thing that I could possibly consider was that the things that I made or wrote or whatever it happened to be were the end product of that journey. If I wasn't doing those things, then none of it made sense. And I felt, for whatever reason, so strongly that I needed a change of direction. It wasn't that I didn't love where I was or that I didn't love the life that I had, but my life needed another turn. And I couldn't get away from that feeling. I remember there's a woman, I wish I could remember who it was. I read it on Facebook, of all things. This was quite a few years back before I moved. And she wrote this very little thing. She used to write little things every day and post them. And she wrote, make your choices before your lack of choosing makes you.
Wow.
Right? Never mic drop. I know. And when I read that, I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I can keep going and I'll be perfectly fine in the direction that I am. But will I regret not making a move or not making a change if 20 years down the road, I didn't do it and I didn't try it? So I do have that self-doubt. I think everybody who is putting themselves out there in some way has that self-doubt. It's what drives you in a way, because you not only have to prove it to others, but you have to prove it to yourself that you were capable of the idea that you had.
Yeah. Now, I think that I'm not wrong if I say that a lot of people feel that they need a change.
Yeah.
But the bigger part of those people don't do it. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think so. I think life it's set up in such a way that it's difficult to make a change. A change is never easy. It's never comfortable. It's never
Why do you think that is?
I think maybe because humans tend to like to be comfortable. They just do. We want to find, even when you make a change, when it's a big change, the first thing you want to do is find something that makes you comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe change is difficult because it just is. It's complex. There's so many aspects of it. It's not just your mindset, it's your surroundings, it's who you are, it's what you do. It takes into account every single thing. It's your routine, it's your place in the world.
And you don't know what to expect when the change, you know what it feels before the change, which is pretty good. But when you get to the other side, you don't know if it's going to be good, good as it is right now.
No. And you don't know if you're going to even have the fortitude to go through with it and handle it, Just, you take it one day at a time and you just keep going forward and you just do what you can do. I think change is one of those things that it's the degree of it, maybe, maybe there have been times in my life when a little bit of change was perfect. It was all I needed, little tweak, a little adjustment. You just go a little bit more this way or that way. And then there have been times in my life when it's like, oh, wait a minute, I need a really big change. This is it. So
yeah. And are you the type of person that, and this is a great conversation, I'm looking on the juicy bites.
We're talking a lot like this, so
now we're talking about the good juicy stuff. So when we talk about little changes or big changes, so how does it feel for you? Like when you're starting to feel that way, is it just a nudge or is it a voice in your head? And does it get stronger as you go? Like how does it being articulated inside of your physical body?
I think that like when I decided that I was going to move here, that was kind of an accumulation of stuff, and it got loud. I mean, I reached a point where I felt like if there was something that could have been verbalized, it would have been something pretty much screaming, saying, you have got to do this.
Oh my God.
I don't really have any other way to describe it. There have been other times when it's just something quiet where I just realized one day that, oh, this needs to be done now, And those, I think, tend to be the more peaceful transition. But I think there are times when things in your life just start telling you, that it's time. And if you don't do it now, you're going to miss that time. And maybe later it's going to change again. Who knows, And now I think about that and I think, oh my God, I had such a big change. I want to ever go through that again. That was really hard. So I don't know. I mean, and I think that the things you've had to go through in your life sort of help you decide whether you want to make that big change or not.
And now being on the other side of that change right now, what would you tell yourself back then that you wish someone told you?
Oh, I think I would have told myself that, oh, wow, what would I have told myself?
You can think about it.
I would have wanted to tell myself something early on that said, don't be afraid to test the waters along the way, to kind of try things out along the way. I was always a little bit hesitant to move outside of that comfort zone. I would do it in little bitty steps, but I would keep them within that comfort zone. And I kind of wish I had done more things that were out of my comfort zone earlier.
That's beautiful message.
I think when you're younger, I think life you have such a path, all these things that you feel like you need to do, and you accomplish them and you think, oh, check that one off my list. And then you accomplish another and you say, check that one off my list. But I think in a way, the reality of it is that we don't take the time to experience it in such a way. We look at it, it's like what we were talking about with the in-between things. You're always looking ahead. And so when you're always looking ahead, when you check that box off, it's like you immediately move to something else, to the next thing. And you don't sit in that box for a while and say, wait a minute, I get to play in here for a bit,
Right. Have you thought about let me just rephrase this question. So now that you are, I consider you a writer. Have you ever thought about being a writer when you were younger? Have you envisioned that as your possibility for the future?
Not even, no.
What about an artist?
I had always thought of that. Even when I was very, very little, that was the only thing that ever rotated in my head that was the only thing I ever thought about. I didn't consciously think I have to paint a picture, I have to do that. I just thought that's what I do. So in some way, shape, or form, just making things and being creative was, it was there from the very beginning. The writing part, I had a teacher in 4th grade. I was 10. She had just come back from Japan, a lady named Mrs. Rainville. And she taught us to write haiku. And that opened a door.
What is that? Can you elaborate?
Haiku is little short poems that they're 3 lines long. And the first line is 5 syllables. The second line is 7. And the third line is 5. And they're very short, very brief, little, condense what you want to say, make it poetic. It has to be fit in this little parameter. And that ever since that, I would write things.
That got you started.
Yeah.
And
so it's been a part of what I teach my painting students, to write about what they see, what they feel. It's been a part of my sketchbooks. It's been a part of things forever, but I never, ever, ever thought I would put it out there. I'd written articles and things for magazines and stuff in the past, but
I got to give you a big credit taking a lot of guts to put your thoughts out there like that and those are very vulnerable. Some of the stuff that you sent out is very vulnerable and very thought-provoking. So it takes a lot of guts to just put it out there to the world, even though it's thousands of eyes that are, well, if it's thousands of eyes, everyone has 2 sets, right? So it's 2,000 that's the eyes that are looking at that stuff, right?
Well, thank you for that. I feel almost like when I write every week, I always think about that sense we were talking about before of the commonality of everything. And I try to edit everything back in such a way that it doesn't matter who you are or where you're coming from or what you believe, it's common. It's whatever I write, I want it to be a feeling that everybody can relate to, no matter what they think, what their, what they believe, what they're
going through. So it apply one size fits all kind of.
Yeah.
And so what is the next phase for the Saturday at the Cove?
Right now, I've taken the last up till the first 3 years of it, and I culled it down to 65 entries that I think is it 65? No, it's more than that. Already 60 entries that I really liked, that I felt had a good message to them, and I edited them back and sort of took them out of their time frame if they were kind of pointed toward a certain time frame. And I've got it all put together as a book, and it's at the book designer, the guy who puts it into digital format before it gets printed. He's got it right now, so it's in. So I'm in the process now of learning another thing that I didn't know how to do. So I'm just diving in,
adding it to the resume.
Oh God! So I'm trying to figure out how to get it printed and then distributed. And so I'm working on that process. I had self-published and printed a smaller book several years back, but in the process of moving and everything else in COVID, and the printer that I used went out of business. And so one thing led to another, and it's not been reprinted yet. So my goal is to be able to find a way to print both of these, the old one again and this new one at the same time. And then I think my next thing that's rumbling through my head is to take some of the poetry that I put out there and do a smaller book of poetry with my painting. So that's
all right. You're not stopping here. Sounds good. Sounds like.
So again, I'm diving off a cliff that I have no idea what's down at the bottom of it, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, but you're spreading your wings and you're just trying it out. I like that. And your emails have been a great success, obviously. So the book, I think, is going to fly out of the shelves, especially that, all the 600 people that responded to you via email. I think that's going to be at least you're going to sell 600 copies. I'll
be happy if I sell 3. Just want to do it. I want to say, look at, I did that. So we'll see. You froze again. I got to, you're stuck.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. What is your motivation behind doing all that?
I have absolutely no idea. Just put it together. I think part of my motivation is that a lot of people have asked if I would put it into a book. And because I had done the smaller book years ago, I loved doing that. I mean, to me, that was just like, I was so surprised by it because I never thought I would do something like that. And this is much bigger and much more involved, but just the idea of just doing it. I think my motivation is maybe just to be able to see it as a finished product, to say, and to have something that my granddaughter someday will look at and say, "Oh, Nana made that," I mean, that's me.
Well, let me give you a tip. What about the 600 people that emailed you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, to me, this is why I keep writing, is that the responses that I get every week, I feel bad now because I can't always answer them all in a week or 2 weeks. And you talk about motivation when you know that people are paying attention even, or that they have their coffee with you on a Saturday morning. Oh my gosh, I just want to meet them all in person. I want to say, oh, just come to my house. Come on, we'll have all of you here today. So you
mentioned that there's some folks that actually have a reading circle that, can you tell me more about that?
Yes, there was a man who started contacting me almost weekly. They have a little art group in England somewhere, and they read because I put a little blurb in almost every single one of them that tries to take what I write and sort of attach it to an art principle, like something that, like the principle of, if I write about balance, I might write about composition a little bit and balancing in a composition. So their art group tends to read the excerpt and then read the little art piece, and they talk about it. So I thought, this is fantastic. I love this. So yeah, I feel like I'm surprised every single solitary week. I'm shocked, truly, that I get responses and that people seem to want to keep reading it. So I feel like, as long as I can keep coming up with things I want to say, I'll keep writing it. I don't know what happens with it. I don't know where that goes from here. there? I have no idea, but
yeah. But I really admire you you seem to be very in tune with your internal, how do I call it? Internal drive, maybe, right? So you felt the calling for a change. You admitted to it. You made the change no matter how hard it was. And then you changed your life around, maybe not the first time, but you had to do it yet again. And without knowing what to expect, you were able to create opportunities for yourself that brought you to where you are now, and also benefiting a lot of people you kept on following that internal drive, internal calling for what you should do next. Were you ever like, oh my God, I don't know what to do right now? I felt like you always knew what to do next, maybe, or maybe it just seems like that.
I think we put our best self out there, I think there were a lot of times when I almost, you almost panic because you don't know what's next. As an artist, you never have a set path. You don't have somebody paying you a salary. You don't have, your success, your ability to take care of yourself is in direct proportion with how much you're willing to work. And, I remember it's just kind of I remember getting sick for a couple of days and thinking to myself, now what? This takes time away from this. I guess, oh gosh, I don't know. I'm kind of losing track of the question here.
Well, I guess I was just asking, how do you seem to have internal guidance of what to do next?
Okay.
And I know it's hard to be entrepreneur because no one's paying your bills and...
Well, nobody gives you a blueprint for it either. You're kind of need to figure it out by yourself. And I think you just have to you just sort of keep pushing forward. That one step back is okay. You can manage that. But 2 or 3 steps backward, and you've got a lot to do to get yourself back where you started. So I think it's a matter of really getting yourself up in the morning and saying, okay, what do I have to do today? I hate to admit it, but I'm a list maker. And that has saved me more times than not, because even if I have a day where I'm tired or I feel like, okay, today I need a break, I can't do this today, that list is there and I can go back to that tomorrow and I can say, okay, now I'm ready for this. But there's always that sense of trying to balance, how do I pay attention to what's happening right now when I need to be thinking about what I have to do next? There's always that, that next.
You seem to be, have a way around it, one way or the other, whether it's, the list or whatever other ways you were using to get there. I do want to get to, as we're starting to wrap up the interview, to the final question of the interview where I asked, what is your definition of success?
Yeah, I think...
You knew I was going to ask you that.
I know. I thought about this for a long time because I think that for most creative people, the definition of success is never, it's not a monetary one. It's not, did I just make my masterpiece? It's none of that. I think it's more, to me, the idea that you've created a life that you're at peace with, that you feel is allowing you to do the things that are important, in whatever way that takes. I think that success has a lot to do with your peace of mind.
Yeah, very well said. And I think with everything you're doing with your workshops, with teaching, with weekly newsletter, I think you're there.
I feel okay about all of it. I think that the other part that I should probably add to that, that I think is really important, is the notion of feeling like you've done something that gives out or gives back in some way, that the things that you're creating are things that offer something to somebody, whether it's what you're teaching or you're painting or, what you write. I feel like it's important to know that what you're doing, you're like the vehicle, the process of what you do is what's important to you, but the outcome of what you do is what's important to somebody else. And so I feel like to me, that's part of the whole success of all of it, is that I get to do the process part, but I feel like I'm successful if the product is something that enriches somebody else's life, that is important to them, that makes a difference to them, that gives them something or a way to think about, I don't know, whatever. But
sometimes it's just one word that you say to someone, whether it's a student of yours or they read your newsletter. Like me, for example, I keep on thinking about the in-between days. So for me, the in-between days is stuck with me. And every time I think about in-between, I think about you.
Oh my gosh. Well, that makes me feel good. I do that with other people though, like to me, I feel like that's the thing is that, we bump into people our whole lives for reasons, and if they are able to offer you one thing, gold, it really is.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thank you so much, LYN. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that maybe you want to offer to someone who's going through some sort of transition, or maybe getting ready to go through a transition, or maybe not even sure where to start with the transition?
Well,
some last thoughts?
I think, wow, that's a tough one. I think the thing I would say is to hold tight to those people that are around you, because when you feel like when you're going through it, it's rough, it's bumpy, it's not smooth ever. And you have to have those people that are your anchors.
Circle of trust, I call it. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think you need those people who either make you laugh, or who make you feel safe, or who make you feel like they've got your back. I mean, it's important. And I think that, whatever form those people take, be aware of them. I think that would be the advice that I have for anybody that's going through that, is you don't ever, no matter what you do, you don't do it by yourself. There's always other people with you and around you. So
yeah, emotional support is so important. And it could be, a friend, it could be a therapist, whatever it is. It could be your dog too.
I was just going to say, all through COVID, I had 3 cats that
there you go.
Aside from these 3 little crazy animals, they do a lot. So whatever it takes.
Yes, whatever it takes. Yeah. So I feel like I've picked your brain enough today.
Oh, this was great. I really enjoyed talking to you.
I know some of the questions are really thought-provoking, right?
Sometimes it's fun though. I love getting into things deeper. I feel like that's something we all need to do a little bit more of with people.
I love deep conversations, and I hope I didn't catch you off guard. I felt like you had answers on it. You did awesome, though. You did awesome.
No, you're great with questions. You ask good questions, so it made it easy.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in a lot of them, and you spoke about, the basic things. I really like how you talked about how we're so relatable in so many different ways, and the more we share our stories, that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because, your story could motivate someone who's going through similar stuff. And it may not be moving, it could be something else, but, still similar resources will be needed to go through that transition. So hopefully they find some good insights listening to our podcast.
I hope so. I hope so.
So thank you so much for being part of the journey today with me. And
thank you. It was so sweet of you to ask me.
Absolutely. I knew that there was more than I knew about you. So I'm glad I was able to get it out in a gentle way.
You're very good at that.
What's that?
Well, thank goodness. I mean, I didn't feel uncomfortable or anything, so that's a good thing. So
thanks for tuning in to Spotlight on Everyday Heroes. Did you enjoy hearing the inspiring story of our guest? Are you feeling motivated to carve out your own unique path to success? If so, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you want to join the conversation and share your own success story, or if you have a guest recommendation, head on over to our website at www.capitalturners.com and let us know.